Wildfires take hold across the country. Police raid pro-Palestinian encampments at Alberta universities. Ontario's police watchdog investigates Sault Ste. Marie police officer after officer shoots 37-year-old man who posted black and blue dress 100 years ago on the internet has been convicted of assault of his wife. Egypt joined South Africa's ICJ genocide case, and 27 people are dead as clashes in the Darfur escalate. Good morning. It's Monday, May 13th. I'm Nora. Here are your headlines. Several wildfires have taken hold nationwide, resulted in evacuation orders and alerts. Last year, Canada marked the worst wildfire season ever, with fires burning 18.5 million hectares of land. The last record was in 1989, when fires burned 7.6 million hectares. In Alberta, the government has issued an evacuation alert for Fort McMurray and Cypre Creek. The fire burning near Fort Mac has been listed as out of control as it grew rapidly from Friday over the weekend. A similar story is playing out in British Columbia, where residents of Fort Nelson were ordered to evacuate as well. The fire burning near the town was listed as out of control, with high winds pushing smoke as far as Edmonton, impacting air quality there. And finally, in Manitoba, a fire near Flin Flon has grown to cover more than 35,000 hectares, causing outages and the closure of several highways. People in that area have been ordered to evacuate. As the fire season continues, it's expected to worsen because of high temperatures and dry weather. Next, in Alberta, police have raided pro-Palestinian encampments at the University of Calgary and the University of Alberta. Videos circulating on social media showed a violent crackdown by police against students at the University of Calgary late last week. They showed up in riot gear, using shields, batons, and flashbang explosives in an attempt to remove the protesters. And you should really look for a video of this. Their shields look like they were stolen from a high school musical on police brutality or something. According to the CBC's Lily Dupuis, 5 people were arrested and 3 were charged under the Trespass to Premises Act. Calgary's chief of police, Mark Newfield, said that the university administration has been in contact with police in preparation for the encampments and that they would continue to enforce the trespassing law regarding them. No word on how students actually can be accused of trespassing on their own campus. A similar story unfolded at the University of Alberta, where over the weekend, local police showed up to take down the encampment there violently. Organizers reported that police used tear gas and rubber bullets on them, along with hitting protesters with batons. This was done at the request also of their university administration, who said that the encampment, quote, put the university community's safety at risk, unquote, and therefore they were going to put the protesters' safety at risk by getting the police to crack their heads. 3 people at that encampment were arrested. Now, in Montreal at McGill, the university administration is seeking an injunction to remove the encampment there, even though a similar request was thrown out by a judge earlier this month. Despite increased attacks on and against these protests, encampments continue to spring up all over campuses in Canada and around the world, with several universities in Europe announcing that they would divest investments from Israeli companies and or cut academic ties with the country. Next, CTV's Dan Bertrand reports that Ontario's Special Investigations Unit is looking into the Sault Ste. Marie Police Service after an officer allegedly shot and killed a 37-year-old man. As always with these kinds of incidences, the details are slim. Police were flagged down on Saturday night when people informed them that the 37-year-old was harassing them. According to the Sault Police, the officers tried to get the man to leave the area and then searched him and found a gun. Police say that an interaction escalated and then one of the cops shot the man. This man was then taken to hospital where he was declared dead. Next to Scotland for a story that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but does close an internet loop. Remember that blue and black dress that you could also see as being a white and gold dress from about 2015? Well, it turns out that the man who originally posted that image back in 2015 is also a violent abuser. He has pled guilty in Glasgow to attacking his wife in an attack that left her fearing for her life. Keir and Grace Johnson live on the Isle of Colonsay, which is off the west coast of Scotland, and Keir has a history of abuse. Grace has lived in fear for many years. Their island has no permanent police presence, and The Independent doesn't mention what kind of non-cop services it has for domestic violence, but Grace Johnson felt trapped with him. The assault he was convicted of was strangulation. Last week, Montreal's police service and the provincial prosecution office said that they're focusing on strangulation as an indicator of a situation where someone is far more likely to be murdered by their partner. The cops will be better trained to suss out if strangulation happened in the cases that they respond to. See, I tried to take a piece of news that wasn't exactly relevant to Canada and make it relevant. See how we do it on the Daily News? There you go. Moving now to other international news. Egypt has decided to join South Africa's genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice. This move is surprising and unexpected as Egypt plays a mediation role between Israel and Hamas. Egypt was also among the first Arab countries to normalize relations with Israel. And you know all those tunnels that you hear about that go underneath Gaza? Well, it was Egypt that recently sealed those tunnels as they used to go into Egypt. The country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs cited increased Israeli aggression against Palestinians in recent weeks as the reason for its decision. In a statement, the ministry said this, quote, "The submission comes in light of the worsening severity and scope of Israeli attacks against Palestinian civilians in the Gaza Strip and the continued perpetration of systemic practices against the Palestinian people, including direct targeting of civilians and the destruction of infrastructure in the Strip, and pushing Palestinians to flee," unquote. Egypt is not the only country that has joined the case recently. Earlier this month, Turkey announced its intention to join the case following Colombia's lead. Egypt's move also comes after Israeli forces have been pushing further into Rafah and ordering more evacuations. In fact, Israel has taken control of the border crossing at Rafah from Egypt. 150,000 people had already fled Rafah this past week. And finally to Sudan, where clashes between the army and the paramilitary group, the Rapid Support Forces, has been escalating in the city of El Fasher in North Darfur. The RSF has been surrounding the city since the middle of last month, and it remained the last area of Darfur that it hadn't taken, as the army has managed to hold it. Internal organizations have been warning for weeks about the potential for violence and impacts on civilians, as El Fasher has expected to become the latest flashpoint in fighting between the two groups, as the RSF has moved to try and take it. Now, the Sudan Tribune is reporting that 27 people have been killed with 130 injured as a result of airstrikes and fighting, citing the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. Separately, the BBC reported that a pediatric hospital run by Médecins Sans Frontières has also been hit by a bomb, killing 2 children. El Fasher Hospital is the city's main hospital, and it's been overwhelmed. Meanwhile, fighting continues to hinder humanitarian access to the area, and attempts to broker a ceasefire agreement between the RSF and the Sudanese military have continued to fail. Those are your headlines for Monday, May 13th. I'm Nora. You're listening to this podcast at sandynora.com, on the Real News Network podcast feed, and anywhere you get your podcasts. I hope you're staring down the barrel of a good week. I wish you the best today and for the rest of this week, and that you get everything done that you need to get done, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.